Well, let's bring in Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, because we remember, Cameron, a year ago you were at the gates there to Balmoral on that historic occasion, and many people will be reflecting now 12 months on that. In particular, I guess, the King going back there to Crathy Kirk a few hours ago.
Yes, it certainly is a very poignant day, Mark, of course, marking a year since Queen Elizabeth II passed away. As you said, we have seen the King and Queen attend a private prayer service at Crathy Kirk, a short drive from Balmoral, alongside Princess Margaret's two children, Earl of Snowdon and Lady Sarah Chatto, and their children as well, as guests of the King and Queen. Lady Sarah Chatto in particular was incredibly close to her auntie, Queen Elizabeth II. You may well be able to hear the gun salutes firing through my microphone, because I can hear them loud and clear from where I am as well. 41 gun salutes firing in Hyde Park, and simultaneously firing at Edinburgh Castle in Scotland as well. Because it's a royal park, there are an extra 20 guns fired. The usual is a 21 gun salute, which tradition dates back to ships coming into a harbour, signalling that they are friendly ships, firing all 21 guns. And then, because the Tower of London is a royal fortress, a royal palace, they get an extra 20 rounds to fire as well. So at 1 p.m. today at the Tower of London, 62 gun salutes will be fired by the Honourable Artillery Company. And Westminster Abbey, the bells will toll, of course, that famous abbey, for coronations, as we saw in May, but also the late Queen's funeral on the 19th of September last year. So bells will toll at Westminster Abbey in central London at 1 p.m.
So you've explained the question I was going to ask you about the difference in the number of guns, which is great, as the smoke billows over Hyde Park. This is a tremendous, of course, public display on this day. But we've had the private messages as well from the family members. We all miss you, the Prince and Princess of Wales, who, of course, are attending an event down at St David's in Wales.
Yes, and an interesting turn of phrase, saying that they said, "We will miss you," perhaps referring to their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, because accompanying that message was of the late Queen surrounded by her great-grandchildren, taken the summer by the Princess of Wales, I believe, before she died at Balmoral. There have also been a number of close family members and friends who have paid tribute to Her late Majesty today. Her senior dresser, Angela Kelly, has put on Instagram, "I will never forget you, will always love you. I miss you, my friends." Since then, Angela Kelly has actually been moved out of her Grace and Favour home at Windsor. She was part of HMS Bubble, the kind of small pool of staff which looked after the Queen during the coronavirus lockdown, and was incredibly close to the late monarch. Princess Eugenie, the Queen's granddaughter, she has also put a photograph never before seen on Instagram of herself and Her late Majesty at Balmoral, in the grounds of Balmoral at the log cabin. She said, "Thinking of you today, missing you so much, but remembering what a life of service, love and dedication to everyone and to your family who loved you so very much. Forever grateful to you and always in my heart." That's Cameron, from Princess Eugenie, the Queen's granddaughter. Go on, Pip.
We can also see pictures of King Charles and Queen Camilla a little earlier at that service at Crathy Kirk, very much marking the Queen's passing in private, very much like the Queen did when her own father died.
Absolutely. So the late Queen on her accession day spent the day privately at Sandringham. That's where her father died, King George VI, in 1952. And it was very rare, really, that we would see any message from Her late Majesty on her accession day. In fact, the only one I can think of is on the 70th, her final accession day, where she released that now famous statement expressing her wish that Camilla would one day be known as Queen Consort. And now, of course, fast forward a year and a bit, Camilla is now our new Queen. As for the King, he actually released an audio message commemorating his mother, the late Queen, overnight or very early this morning, which we've been playing out on GB News. Have a look on our social media channels if you haven't heard that message. I'm not sure if we can play it to you right this second, but he also has chosen a photograph of the late Queen taken in 1968 in the building behind me, Buckingham Palace, which has never been seen before apart from a small exhibition in London just after the photograph was taken. So it's quite a poignant photograph which is in a number of the papers and online as well. And as for the crowds here at Buckingham Palace, there are lots of tourists, as you can imagine, but people have specifically made the journey here to Buckingham Palace to pay tribute to the Queen a year after her death, because flowers and photographs have been left at the gates in tribute to Her late Majesty. A bit of a contrast really to the sea of flowers we saw here a year ago, just after 6:30, when the Queen's death was announced by Buckingham Palace, where thousands of people were gathered on the Mall and around the Victoria Memorial behind me, despite the pouring rain. It's a lot hotter and warmer here today,
Cameron,
but I remember
I'm
at the
just going to
time,
interrupt because we've got the Royal Horse Artillery at some speed going across the park, which I'm sure would have been a sight that would have excited the late Queen, given her love of horses and, of course, her close connection to the artillery troop.
Absolutely, it certainly was. King Street Royal Horse Artillery, very famous for firing guns in Hyde Park at various ceremonial events, and of course this one is no less important. And I suppose the difference with this one is that Captain Amy Cooper, as you have mentioned, Mark, she has been leading and ordering the guns to fire here, and she was the lead rider in the procession that took Her Majesty the Queen's coffin to Westminster Hall before she lay in state for 3 days. So it's kind of coming full circle for all the armed services, particularly King Street Royal Horse Artillery, who have been firing guns here today, and the other regiments taking part in the gun salutes both in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and the Tower of London a little bit later on today as well.
We also understand, Cameron, there was a royal gun salute at Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland, a 21 gun salute fired by the Army Reservists from the 206 Battery 105 Royal Artillery. And in Wales in the next few minutes, a Prince and Princess of Wales will be arriving for a service in St David's.
Yes, the Prince and Princess of Wales, of course, were named as the new Prince and Princess of Wales the day after Queen Elizabeth passed away during the King's address to the nation. As you said, they're expected to be in Wales and will be visiting Pembrokeshire in West Wales. St David's Cathedral is the choice of location, or at least for part of their visit, where they're going to be attending a private service, I'm told, to commemorate the life of Queen Elizabeth II. But I suspect while they're there, if you've noticed with the Prince and Princess of Wales, over the last year, they've been really trying to integrate and engage with communities across the country, and I suspect they're going to be meeting one or two members of the local community, if not the vast crowds which I suspect have started to gather in St David's, of course the smallest city in the UK, one of the smallest cities in fact in the UK, and has a close link with the royal family as well.
At the moment, thank you for that. As we see the crowd starting to dissipate from Hyde Park, but of course we'll be back to Tower Bridge and also the Tower of London for the next 62-gun salute, as we say, to mark the accession of King Charles.